Welcome back to StoryMagic. Hope you all had lovely weekends full of adventure and fun and play and writing, which is all of those things. Just going to continue bringing people in and share my slides. Okay. So, today in StoryMagic, we are going to be looking at the world's simplest editing process. So, this is an editing process which I created for myself and my clients. And it's especially useful if you do tend to be a little bit overly verbose or like to over contextualize, do a little bit too much scene setting instead of trusting your audience. So the world's simplest editing process is called essential/extraneous. And the way it works is you go through what you've already written and you go through with either an ordinary pen, black, blue, doesn't matter. And if anything is extraneous, so not essential, perhaps it was your train of thought that got you to the bit that you really need to share, right? Maybe it's this little bit of stream of consciousness, which is kind of interesting to you and maybe your best friend, but not the world. And we want to delete. So that you cross out. Okay, you just cross it out. And I really want you to do this exercise properly. We're going to do it all together once now. You're going to choose a passage of your writing and go through with a marker, and anything that is extraneous, you just cross out. Okay? So the other approach is to, instead of a crossing out kind of a pen, find a highlighter, right? A nice bright, maybe yellow highlighter. And you do the same thing. You read through what you have already written and you highlight what is essential. And it's great if while you're doing that, you can be in your body. Right? So you're really allowing yourself to feel what is essential. Ooh, this bit has bubbling potency, right? This bit is powerful. This bit is the bit. I wrote these entire 3 pages for that one sentence. And this is absolutely key in terms of being able to be a brilliant communicator, is being willing to throw out 3 pages of writing for one powerful sentence, knowing that's what you did it all for, that's what it was for. So here are just a couple of examples. When I did this process with myself, one of the most essentialized versions I got to, and in this scenario it was of my vision, was highly sensitive, wildly successful, right? This is my vision for our world in 4 words. It's my vision for the world in 4 words. We've spoken about it before, so I'm not going to go into it now in terms of what else is there in terms of that vision. But essentially, it's about wanting a world where the highly sensitive people are recognized as teachers, as people whose voices we absolutely need to be paying attention to, whose voices are respected, wanted, asked for, in governance, in creation of the curriculum, etc., etc., etc. So it's highly sensitive, wildly successful. And you'll recognize that, of course, as the name of my free Facebook group. So this is one of the things you can do when you get that essentialized, when you get that concise. You can then take this essentialized, concise version of your vision or your message or whatever it is. It works in all the different capacities. and use it as names for things. You might end up using it as a name for a free Facebook group. You might end up using it as a name for a program, right? An offering. Or it might become a tagline for a program. So another example here is, who you are is magic. Let's tell the world, right? How many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 words. Yeah, 9 words. And that would make a really great tagline for something. A couple of other examples. So this one is 10 words, and it's time to make more money doing work you love. Right? Super simple, super to the point. Speaks to my ideal clients who are incredibly magical, incredibly capable in terms of their range of abilities, and know that it's time. It's time to make more money doing work you love. So let's have a little play. Let's first of all do the extraneous exercise, okay? So I want you to choose a passage of your writing, just anything that you've written over the past week, and grab a pen, and we're going to do this quickly, okay? You're going to have 2 minutes. It's really important that you don't overthink it, right? Do not overthink it. So choose a short passage, maybe a paragraph, go through and cross out, put a big slash line through anything which is extraneous. So I'm setting my timer for 2 minutes. Off you go. Okay, and stop. And then we're going to go straight into doing the opposite, the essential exercise. So for this one, if you've got a highlighter, great, use that. If you don't, you can just underline or star it. Okay, so again, I'm going to give you 2 minutes. So choose a new passage of writing. This time you're going through, make sure you are in your body, you are feeling the words, and you're feeling for which words hold extra power, extra potency, which words are essential. You and your highlighter. In fact, actually, we're going to do this one in 1 minute, okay? Because you're only looking for the essential. 1 minute, go. Okay, and pausing there. So I just want to hear a few shares. There's quite a bit more to get through today, so we won't hear from lots of you, but let's take 2 shares. Elizabeth saying, I've crossed everything out. Does this editing need to start from more developed copy? Possibly. Yeah, that might be it. Hopefully you're not being too critical of your work and crossing it out for that reason. That might also be what's happening. Or it might just be that, you know, this was a piece that got you and your kind of inner tilling of the soil of your unconscious to the point where something else then came through. And so this is gone now, right? This isn't needed. So yeah, hard to say without knowing exactly what it is you've crossed out, but there are some suggestions. So who would like to share? Kirstine, brilliant. Let's hear you.
I'm aware it's long and I can compress it to one sentence, and I'm not very good at the in-between bit. Yeah, so meandering through the festival, tuning into my body to learn where my feet wanted to take me. I was unclear on my direction. This place I needed to go to was not one I knew existed yet. I spied a campmate, and something in my very bones told me this was the person I needed to journey with. She was seeking the reignition of a distant memory from the previous year, one involving the scent of wood smoke and dancing, flickering flames, connecting with different generations around a campfire. Walking across the dry, crunchy grass, sequin-covered humans passed us by, heading off on their own nighttime adventures. We turned a corner and discovered a small, gaudy tent with twinkling lights and magical beings spilling out into the night as they moved in unison with the bouncy music, engaging with one another in conversation and play. But no sign of those smouldering campfires. So we were leant against cushions that embraced our bodies with their softness, gazing up at the night sky, chatting, before making the decision to head home. My companion went to say her goodbyes to those we had arrived with and did not return. Her lack of presence became more and more noticeable. It was as if she'd vanished into thin air. I hunted for her in amongst the whirling dancers, but there was no sign. And then from a curtain at the back of the tent, she emerged with delight and beckoned for me to join her. I found them, she called out joyfully. Stepping through this curtain took me into another world. This one not so brightly lit. The people somehow more real. The conversations more important. It was as if the world out there in the tent and beyond was frivolous theatre, a disguise for the real depths of connection available beyond the veil of the curtain, not a doorway that all could pass through. A vibrant being bedecked in a feathered top hat and soft fluffy coat moved towards me, challenging my worthiness to have discovered this realm, and delighted when I passed the test, a deep conversation rapidly ensued. She held space for my inner child to release a little more freely, giving it the opportunity to become more playful and seen. And in doing so, this elegant witch, for a witch she was and declared herself to be, mirrored the energy of my inner child back at me in both words and feelings, activating sensations within my body. Golden laser-light rays of light and sparks burst forth as 2 golden lumps of molten metal sped towards one another and collided, interlocking, their edges congealed into one solid piece, an explosion of light and sound occurring within my body. A sudden understanding that this playful, mischievous energy directly matched the natural MDMA description that others had given me, and now those parts had become one. The impact of this collision reverberated through my body, calling me to integrate it with movement. I emerged through the curtain at the back of the tent and made my way to the dance floor, aware I was not the same person I had been when I left. The tent was less gaudy, the people less wild, a reflection, perhaps, of my own integration into this more wild and vibrant version of self.
How does that feel as you're sharing it?
It feels long. And like I was trying to summarize it and just go, oh yeah, the summary is my story is about trusting my intuition and following it. But I don't know how to make it more compact because all of the bits feel important.
Yeah, and there are with what you've shared, more than making it more compact for you and what you've shared, it's more about where that would be appropriate to share, and when on your customer journey, because I am absolutely sure that there are people who are your ideal clients who, knowing you, and knowing already that your message is about deep trust of intuition, would love to sit around a campfire with you and sort of melt into the sensory world of the story you just conjured, right? Absolutely, I have no doubt. However, if you, for example, started a I'm just pausing and checking in. I think so. If you did a Facebook Live, for example, and you shared that story, I do imagine you'd have a few people being like, where are we? What's happening? What's the point? Like, what's the point? Like, why am I listening? Do you know what I mean? So with that, I wouldn't actually try and edit that down. I'd just bear in mind where and when to share. Yeah, and it's more like a creative writing piece. I think it would be a beautiful video blog, right? And you would just need a little bit of an introduction, and then the kinds of people who are the kinds of people that you want to work with you would love it, right? Would absolutely get to immerse themselves in the world of that story and resonate with a lot of it. Yeah, I'll just share you. This it's just a personal response, but so you know, that line when you said that somebody challenged your worthiness to enter, that I was really angry on your behalf. I was like, who is challenging Kirsten's worthiness? Just so you know that might be in the space. Like, who is this person trying to decide who does and who doesn't get into this space? That pissed me off a little bit. Who is not worthy to enter this beautiful space? Surely everyone is.
Okay.
So, yeah. All right. So let's see if we can get an example of someone who really has essentialized it down, maybe even to something that might become a name of something, a program, a Facebook group, who feels like you have managed to really essentialize your writing down. Or is it too early for that? Is that a half hand, Ellen? Yeah? And Rhiannak? All right, let's hear, Rhiannak, let's come to you because that was a full hand.
And if we have and just to say, hello everyone. I wasn't here last week. I was on leave, and I have gone through this program before 3 years ago when you first did it, Kate. So I've got some that helps.
Yes, and you have been, Rhiannak honestly has been one of the Story School stars. She has continued to implement absolutely all the elements of it in her marketing. So she's someone I'd recommend following because you'll see the things that you're learning being used out there as really effective marketing. And I know you marketed and sold a workshop using stories and emotive languaging, and how many people was it that came to
I think it's I've been writing poems as well, so it's the while unleashing the voice, and sometimes it's a story, sometimes it's a poem, but I think in January I got 70 sign-ups for a paid workshop. just from one post, one poem, that was just hit the spot. So, that's what's possible.
Sure is. So yes, let's see what you've got.
Yeah, beautiful. 4 years old, sitting at the dinner table, tears rolling down my cheeks, my face wretched, distressed by the cutting exchange of terse words, feeling their anguish as if it were my own, as if I had no skin. Then their frustrations turned on me, crybaby. Mortified, I wished for the ground to open and swallow me. How could I disappear, become invisible? Mostly I had my head stuck in a book, even as my siblings whirled noisily around me. I kept my head down, shied away from groups, and built my wall of quiet reserve. For decades, I avoided scenarios that would put me in front of groups. I didn't share how I felt, even with my closest friends. I'd built my wall well. Fast forward 4 decades. My mouth was dry, my pulse raced, my stomach lurched. Deep breath, here goes. I stepped forward in front of the audience in a bright sunlit hall and began to speak. The poem I spoke felt like a coat that didn't fit. It was thrilling, but made for someone else, someone tall, larger than life, sensual. I was small, shy, cerebral. As I stretched into it, I noticed my body come alive. My hips swayed, my arms extended, my head held high, my voice grew louder, deeper. I saw the audience mirror me, their eyes light up, their smiles widening, their bodies swayed with mine as I stretched into new language. Because I'm a woman, phenomenal woman, that's me. Weeks later, I stepped into a hot, sticky room in front of 5 people. I claimed my space and aced the interview, finally, my first CEO role. For someone who never felt like a leader, I transformed that organization, implementing my vision and impacting tens of thousands of lives. Imagine a world where sensitive, intuitive visionaries felt free to step forward to share their gifts, unleashing their wisdom, talent, and creativity to create the future of our dreams. That's the world I want to live in. That's why I do what I do.
Beautiful. It's really, really nice to get to hear this version of your story that, absolutely is these core moments of your experience as a young 4-year-old, and then finding your voice through poetry, embodiment of the poetry on the stage, and then this then being a power you get to take into your CEOship. It's a beautiful journey that you take us on. The one thing I would say to have a play with is the language of the beginning story when you're 4. Because at the moment you're using, understandably very adult language like distressed and terse and anguish. And I remember Una Alexander, who's a parenting coach, she told this story of being sat at the table and pushing mushy peas and fish fingers across her plate.
Yeah, we were in the same program together.
Yeah.
She's a brilliant writer. Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant. Yeah, so you two were both there that first, what was then Storytelling Summer School. So, this is for everyone listening as well, because it's a way to make your languaging even more powerful in terms of bringing in people into the world of your story. Una told a similar-ish, kind of in terms of essence, story that reenactors did, and she used the word inadequate. And I asked her if a 4-year-old would have used the word inadequate, and of course the answer was no. And when she went back into it, she created this term that was so powerful. She swapped out the word inadequate with mummy ache. right? So much more powerful. This 4-year-old sat at a table missing her mummy, and not feeling safe and not feeling loved. It wasn't inadequate at 4, it was mummy ache. And so I'd like you, Reenact, to have a play with what would your 4-year-old have said? Because she wouldn't have said distressed, and she wouldn't have described the atmosphere as terse.
Yeah.
And she wouldn't have used the word anguish. So that's your edge I'd like you to play with now.
Right.
Can you use not necessarily actual language of a 4-year-old, but 4-year-old-esque language?
Okay. Beautiful.
Okay. Have
Appreciate
a play
that.
with that.
Thank you.
Yeah, brilliant example. And in fact, I am going to continue with the training now, because it's a brilliant example of what I'm about to teach you. So do bear in mind that Reenact has done this course already, so no comparisons. And it was a brilliant setup, so thank you very much, for the next piece, because we're going to start talking about order. Okay, order of the moments that you're choosing to share from your life. So what Reenact just did was she did beginning, middle, end. All right, she did when she was 4, and then the moment on the stage, which was 4 decades later, and then however many years it was later, 5 or something, the CEO experience. Okay, so Reenact took us in order, in linear order of life, and the order that these things actually happened. Beginning, middle, end, and it worked beautifully. And it's not the only order that you have to share your stories in. And in fact, because life happens in that order, right? Beginning, middle, and then end is like, the latest point in the story, or possibly even now, bringing them up to date now. If you mess with the order that life happens in, and you maybe start now, but then go back into the past, and possibly then further back, right, which would be kind of end, middle, beginning, it's yet another way to be really holding the audience captive with you, because you are messing a little bit with the ordinary order of life, and that surprising element is another way to keep your audience truly with you. And the other way that I like to think about this is that while life happens in one sense, in a linear fashion, in another, it actually really doesn't, right? It really doesn't. And we're all living out stories in the now that actually happened in the past. So it's not like there was this thing that happened in the past, and then this thing that happened in the middle, and then here we are now, and it's all happened in linear fashion. We're all absolutely living out stories that happened when we were 7, 3, 21. Now, right? All of our past is alive in us now. And depending on how much inner work we've done, it's either alive inside us in an integrated and now powerful sort of lessons to share, understanding of who you are kind of way, or it's stalling, it's keeping us stuck in old versions of who we are. And so perhaps telling stories in this sort of mixed up order is actually more real, right? More real. And perhaps, again, not necessarily, but perhaps more interesting. So I want you to have a think in terms of your moments from your life. What order would it make sense to share them in? Is it beginning, middle, end? Is it beginning, end, where you are now, perhaps, and then back to the middle, back to some of what it took to get to where you are now? Do you want to start at the end, go back to the middle, and then all the way back to the beginning, to those origin moments of, you know, what happened in childhood that means that this is a theme for you, this is something you're having to work through. And there's there aren't all these different orders, there's 6, right? There's 6 different orders that you can play with. You know, I was thinking about Jackie's story, right, that we worked, not yesterday, on Saturday, as an example for this. So Jackie can tell her story about, you know, she's gathering her certificates, right? And she's going and she's going and she's grabbing her 3 principles certification and her psychosynthesis certification, and it's piling up and it's piling up, and I was going to use and I suddenly stop and I ask myself, Jackie, what are you doing? Why are you not just doing it? Why are you keeping on searching for more certificates? And I realized in that moment it wasn't another certificate I needed. It was a permission slip that said, you have everything that you need already. You are ready for that next level of leadership that you know you are capable of. And then, so that's, you know, a sort of improvised version of where we got to on Saturday. And then what Jackie could do is she could take us whoosh back into the past and give a story of why, as a grown woman with all these certifications, she didn't feel ready. Like, why? What was one of the defining moments of the "you're not good enough" story from childhood, right? And paint that picture. You know, it could be something like, totally making this up, but something like, you know, I'm 3 years old standing in my dad's office and I proudly show him my painting and he shoves it to the side and says, "Not now, I'm busy." Right? It could be tiny, you know, this moment of like such pride, this genuine, innocent pride of a 3-year-old that's done a painting, and it's not important enough to get their parents' attention. And what is important is work, right? It could be that short. And all of Jackie's people who have similar corresponding stories of "I'm not good enough," that we as coaches, as transformational workers, understand will have had its origins in childhood, they all get inside to feel, oh yeah, that's what I've been doing too. I have also been on a certificate hunt, searching for the praise of my parents, searching for the "well done, I'm proud of you," right? And then she can take them into, which is what reenacted. So reenacted beginning, middle, end. Then she segued into vision. Yep, her vision for the world. And then she segued into, and that's why right? And she talked about her work. So again, in Jackie's example, you could do something similar. So be something like, you know, now I know a piece of paper doesn't define my success. You know, now I know I am the one with the power to give myself a permission slip for good enough. I want to live in a world where humans know that who they are is perfect. I want to live in a world where leaders lead with vulnerability and humanity. And that's why I offer, you know, coaching programs, retreats to leaders who want to make their unique difference in the world, not the one that the certificates on their wall deem appropriate, right? Something like that, you see. And then she's got her whole story of that her perfect audience gets to resonate with. Chasing certificates, realizing it's because you don't think you're good enough, giving us the origin story of why that's then been a pattern through your life, going to vision, and going to what you now do, right? Landing the plane. So I want you to, so a couple of helpful segues, okay? So in case you want a little bit of structure, a little bit of, phrases to use. So you can go from I, and then the work you do, because imagine if everyone knew, and then you go to your vision. And obviously they need to be connected. I, the work you do, because I want to be part of a world where, and then you go to your vision. Or you can flip them, right? I believe in a world where, or I want a world where, and you go to vision. So I, really, really simple, and then you go to work you do. And a couple of other examples here. So it's pretty simple, but if you want some helpful segues, you can borrow these. I like this last one. I use this a fair bit. So describe the vision, go straight into it, and then stop and then say, I want that world, and I want it for you. And that's why and then you would describe your work. So we're going to have some writing time, specifically be experimenting and playing and exploring now with the order, okay? The order of your stories, and then the segueing into the vision, your why, and also the work you do, that little bit about, who is it for? What do you do for who? What do you do for whom? What's in it for them? Make sure you land the plane, make sure you give them a reason to care, and want to continue listening to you, speaking to you, and potentially getting deeper into your world and becoming a client. Okay, and also remember that you now have the editing exercise of essential and extraneous. So I'm going to give you 20 minutes writing time, which will take us to 1 o'clock. So if you want quiet writing time, then turn your volume off your computer, set your timer for top of the next hour, if you're in a different time zone, top of the next hour, and then come back. And if you want help, put your hand up. Monica.
Hi.
Hello.
So I've written out like why and why me. Should I read what I've got so far?
Yeah, great. Go for it.
Okay. So she knew that she had to scream. Locked out of the house, she stood alone in the garden on a summer's day. Could this be the moment? She'd felt the storm building up inside for days, like a smoking grenade whose fuse is already lit and ready to explode at any moment. Before the voices saying no had a chance to gather momentum, she let it out. Tentatively at first, a little mewing kitten, until it gradually built up to a roar that came from the depths of her belly. For the next few minutes, she pounded her fists on the ground and rolled around on the grass, kicking her legs in the air, not caring about anything or anyone else. It was delicious to be her, under the big blue sky. She felt a big peace descend upon her. Warmth poured into the stillness that was all around. She wondered if the sky had only just turned into that exquisite shade of blue, or had it been that way all along and she hadn't noticed with the noise in her head. She heard voices approaching. The others were getting back. It was time to put the wild genie back inside the bottle. She longed to be free, to have an adventure, to escape the prison of normal. That would have to wait for another day. Not today, not now. With that, she dusted off her hands fixed her expression, and switched back into sensible gear. She was ready to face the fragmented world once again. Imagine a world where people have come fully alive from the inside. The love, joy, and radiance of their inner being is turned on. They've released the weight of expectations and the binds of fear, guilt, and shame. They're light and free. These people are deeply connected to the worthiness inherent with their presence on this earth. The creative spark of their being is free to express, share, and make a difference with the natural gifts of their essence. They're no longer consumed by how others think, feel, or perceive them. This is the life they came here to live, guided by the whispers of their soul and aligned with the wisdom of their wild knowing. The resonance of this truth strengthens their body. It's distinctly different from the energy of anxiety, resentment, and doubtful second guessing. So that's what I've got, 2 pieces. And yeah, I think that piece is missing of how to link it to you, to them.
Yeah.
Part, for example.
Yes, that bit's not there yet.
Teaching and stuff like that.
Yeah, but so first of all, let's go. So why did you make the choice to do it in third person?
It was interesting. I felt like I was more free actually almost doing it in third person.
Okay.
I can change it around to I now, but for the writing part, it was almost like easier for me.
Yeah, to have that bit of distance.
See it as somebody else, yeah.
Yeah. The thing is that we then feel that separation.
Mm-hmm.
So it's less engaging for the audience because you've separated it from yourself.
So go into the I for this.
Yeah, definitely go into the I. It also doesn't yet share. So that's one moment that I think is a moment that could work. But we don't yet know why she needs to roar. Right? What is the origin story? What is perhaps the beginning story? And I know you have many because we've worked on them. And I think you could probably take one actually of the ones we've already done, like maybe even the Baloo one, and then bring this in. So we get child, embarrassed, ashamed, and we get woman beginning, quietly mewing a kitten and then finding her roar from the depths of her belly. And we get then why that's such a powerful noise that she's found, right? Because otherwise we don't yet care. There's just a woman roaring in a garden. We have to know why it
means to her.
We don't know what it means to her. We don't know why it was important. We don't know why we should care. We don't know what it took to get there. Yeah. But I think bringing those two together could work. And then I think your vision is beautiful. I think for you and for your audience, you could share that, in a social media post as is, right? Put it on a beautiful graphic, share it. And in terms of having a really kind of in the guts, few sentences version of your vision, I want you to do the essential exercise with the vision, okay? And just choose. See if you can get it in. I'm going to give you a challenge. See if you can get it in 7 words.
Good.
Okay.
Thanks, Kate.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, Elizabeth and then Carol.
Hi. I think I've hit my limit with some of the material with not having a business. So the elements to do with target clients and that sort of direction. And I was just wondering if you had some suggestions on how I can keep playing with the material so that I can learn the skills and possibly still keep exploring.
Yeah. Well, let's pick a possible audience for you, because you've a few times you've mentioned either this angle of the bringing together of the creativity in the organization, right? So that could be an ideal client, someone who's very, very creative, but a little bit scatty, a little bit chaotic, and they need your organizational support. And then what was the new one that came through most recently?
There was something that came through in my morning pages, and I think it was triggered by hearing some of the other stories quite powerfully about just simply the connection between masculine and feminine, and the sort of sensitives and normal corporate world.
And there was a what's next piece in there, wasn't there?
Yes.
So can you hear that lawnmower? Great timing.
It's not that bad.
Hold this a bit closer. So if you were to pick one of those audiences, so either the sort of slightly chaotic creatives that need help getting organized, or perhaps people inside of corporations who maybe are sensitive and need support finding their what's next, in either inside of the corporations or elsewhere, which one would you pick?
I think probably the creatives one is a little bit easier to access. I think there is something deeper to explore on the corporate one, but I think there's a few more layers to go to see what that looks like. And it's something about bringing the ability for companies to actually live to the values that they actually put on the wall, rather than just making the easy business decisions, and something around helping, if we all stood up to it when they're trying to do silly things, then they'd have a harder time doing it.
It does sound like you've got some energy around that.
It's it really annoyed last year. Well, it's basically what ended up me leaving a company I'd been in for 18 years. So the last 3 years they broke it.
Okay, so how would it be to have a play with that, writing that? Imagine you're speaking to the people in the decision-making positions in these companies, and you are going to use all of this storytelling learning to get them to see how important it is they actually live in alignment with the values that they're putting up on the wall. How would that be? How does that feel as a...
Scary.
Excellent.
So one other question I did have that I got a bit stuck with when I was playing with it yesterday was around the language as well, because the emotive sensory language, I've really, really enjoyed connecting with that, and can feel the power in those kinds of stories and descriptions. But I can imagine going into the boardroom of the company that I currently work in with that kind of language, and they're just going to look at me as if I'm completely crazy.
For sure, absolutely.
Is there horses for courses and places for...
Yes, there is, and it has to be absolutely, it's got to be appropriate for the context in which you're in and who you're speaking to, and the relationship that you have with them, right? But then there are ways to use emotive language in a way that is not at all flowery or sort of different to normal ways that people speak. And a really great example of this, I was at a networking event last week, and I heard a man introduce himself, and he said, I work with teenagers who dread giving presentations. and I help them create drop the mic moments. And I was like, you are a genius, because you just said in, what, I don't know, 10 words, you know, problem you solve, how you help them, but you used emotive language. Dread. One word, right? One word, but powerfully communicates the feeling of being a teenager who has to give a presentation and is dreading it. Yeah, and much more powerful than saying, I work with teenagers who don't like giving presentations, or even who are scared of giving presentations. The word dread is just so much more emotive. So for you, I would recommend that you look at it like that. Like, how can I draw in just the odd, extremely emotive word? Because there's nothing that's weird about that sentence, right? I help teenagers who dread giving presentations to create drop the mic moments. No one is going to go, oh, that's a bit weird. Yeah?
Yeah. Yeah. It's yes, thank you. Yes.
Does that help?
Yeah, it does. Because I've been sort of thinking all the other areas that I write, you know, reports at work, here, there, and everywhere. Where might this fit? And realizing that it's very in your head. It's very factual, and it is. I think maybe the storytelling elements I might find more to do with the order and the flow and the sequencing rather than the language. I think maybe.
And see if you can just use elements of it, like that example of dread instead of scared of. Just as you're going through, see if you can bring it in as a practice. Like, where could I just swap one word out and add something a bit more emotive? Yeah, and as long as you don't overdo it in your context,
Yeah.
it will work.
Okay. I will.
And it's also great, you know, because then you'll have both ways of communicating. You'll have the ability to communicate through facts and data and figures, which is essential, and you'll have the storytelling language. And then when you put them together, you can create something very powerful. Because obviously stats by themselves are boring and dry, but statistics put into story form, yeah,
It needs
suddenly,
the context. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'll give that a try.
Great.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, Carol.
Sorry, had your problem of the gardeners outside. Where we got to on Saturday, in terms of coming up with what I would call the overall story, I've gone back and written that. It's very first draft. But then with listening with the others, I'm realizing that I've got 3 moments, which was one back to, I don't know, 10 years ago. One that was sort of like, which is where I was coming from my head so much and deciding what I needed to do. Then I had one pivot moment, which was, let's bring in human design. And then the final pivot moment was, let's say, fuck all the health stuff that I've been living in for years and do what I really, really want to do and have wanted to do. And I sort of written that. And then this morning, we were just listening to the others. I was thinking, should I go for an origin story from childhood? And if I was, what would that be about? And for me, there is something about having the courage to go forward and follow your dreams. Ones you don't even know that you've got because you've hidden them so deeply within. And it's excavating those and then following through and having the courage. And I know pre-story school, when I was sort of thinking story, one of the ones that I sort of had was when I was a child asking for, you know, can I have piano lessons? I want to play the piano. No, you can't. Can I? No, you can't. Can I go to ballet? No, elephants don't dance. you know, all of these, and can I do double maths and French A levels? No, you've got to stick with the sciences. And I'm wondering whether that would be a good place with some of those to start as origins, to actually, why all these years I've been held back, particularly into my logical head, because maths is a subject that I'm bloody good at. It's how my brain works, but it's the pattern side, which is what I then also bring when I'm working with clients, because I can see how the different pieces come together. Does that make any sort of sense to you?
Absolutely, it does. Yeah, and I think this is, you know, has definitely got the potential to come together as a really powerful story, and you know, capture and speak to those people who are still in their heads, and without going into coach speak or over explaining, explain to them why that might be, right, through story.
Okay.
Yeah, because they will have had their own origin stories that are the reason why they too are living up in their heads, disconnected from their real desires, unable to have that kind of simple follow through of, oh, I want this, I go for it, I want this, I go for it, because of moments of no you can't, no you can't, no you can't.
So when I do the no you can't, do I pick and sort of list those out, so to speak, in a nice little story, obviously, or is it better to just pick one and focus on that and really take that into the sensory side of things?
Both could work, both could absolutely work, and you might want to have both so that in different places you can pick the most appropriate one. Obviously the one where you're sort of going, you know, no you can't, no you can't, no you can't, that's, you know, a similar version in terms of structure as what we've been working on for Jackie. And yes, choosing one and going into it and going into the senses and the emotions might be more powerful in a different way. Yeah, so I would write both.
Okay, and then what I was aware of when I was writing the original longer version was that when I was in this pivot moment of shall I, shan't I, my style of writing that is all questions to myself. Could I dare to do it? Really? Could I? Wouldn't I get laughed at? You know, and that sort of way of talking about it rather than what I was feeling in my body. Is that a way to put that across powerfully? Because that's my natural style, is questioning.
Absolutely. It's like the example I gave you when I shared the inner dialogue of, you know, what are you doing? It's not safe. And then this other quiet voice. Yeah, I didn't give you anything about what was happening in my body.
The inner dialogue version, isn't it?
The inner dialogue, and making sure, especially if you're speaking, that it's coming through in your tone. Right? Because that's another way to convey emotion, of course, is, you know, so when I tell that story, the final sentence is get up, right? Like it's, so yeah, playing with your voice.
And I think that's it, because I do naturally do the speaking part. So for me, I'm having to go from speak to write, and is it coming through correctly? Not correctly, but appropriately in the writing compared to how I speak it. Yeah.
Yes. No, I like that for you. Yeah, great.
Thank you.
All right, so it is bang on top of the hour, so hopefully everyone is listening again. So we're gonna take some shares. So the invitation is to share the whole structure, so 1 to 3 moments in whatever order, beginning, middle, end, and middle, beginning, etc., plus vision and what you do for whom. Okay, we all know it's rough first draft. We are all listening with very loving ears. Who would like to have a go? Beth.
I feel like I've done quite a bit of sharing, so I hope it's okay. Okay, this is, I'm just going to find this bit at the moment. I write on the computer. I've found it's just much easier. It just sort of flows better for me. can't find the. I wasn't expecting the vision bit. Hang on. I dream of a world where we all have the power to access our wild vitality. I swing the rucksack off my shoulder and it thumps gently onto the earthy ground. I turn and face the spreading green of the landscape before me. Acres of open heartland, grasses of blue, gold, and every texture sway gently in the breeze. The early morning sunlight pierces the fading shadows, and I breathe in the crisp, pure air. My chest feels free, expanded, and my arms lift lightly and effortlessly by my side, as though to embrace the rising sun. Hands meet, and I draw the sparkling rays of light down and through my body, washing over me like golden feathered rain. I can't help but laugh. My heart might just explode with the sheer beauty of everything I can feel. My body feels like gold. No, I am golden, shimmering like the sun as it rises with my heart into the violet streaked sky. So this is why I do what I do, because it's transformed my life from a grey muddy puddle of sadness to one of connection and joy, most of the time, that is. The tightness gripped my chest, that all too familiar knot in my heart that threatened to pull my belly inside out. My shoulders hunched and I cowered my chest, not wanting to face the world beyond my inner walls. That's as far as I've got just now.
Ooh, okay.
So then I was meant to do some concluding thing, but yeah, anyway, that's it. That's where I've got.
So what I'd love to hear from you is a grey story. Yeah, so paint a picture. Paint a picture for us of a moment in your life where it was grey, right? What you're calling grey. And then you may find you don't even need to then say, you know, because it's transformed my life from grey to gold. You might, we'll have to figure that out when we get there. But it's going to be more powerful to have the two contrasting stories. Your life when it was grey and your life when it was gold. Yeah, so play with that. And then for you,
it's just the linking bit. So I guess that's why I put that middle bit in, because it's like, do I just go from one to the other? Just flip it, like I'm talking about two different things, because I sort of started the grey bit with the tightness in my chest and stuff. But I guess I had the interlinking bit, which is why I do the grey muddy puddle of sadness to one of connection and joy. So it's the kind of qualifying bit, I suppose.
Yeah, I like that grey muddy puddle, but we want a bit more. What did that then mean? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's slightly too metaphorical. So we want, what did that mean? Either perhaps in a relationship, like what did it mean when you were a grey muddy puddle for your relationships, or what did it mean for your ability to do meaningful work? You know, we need something more tangible, relatable, that we can kind of sink our teeth into. Yeah. And then we'll talk later about whether you need a segue or not. It might work without one, okay? But we'll get to that when we get to it. The other thing I've been thinking about with you is there's almost there is this very revolutionary mission piece, right? Where you are on a mission to wipe out the need for any medical interference in our bodies, right?
That would be, well, I guess so. Yeah, that's the ultimate. Yes.
Yeah, because this is when, if you get to something like that really, really is your mission, and I'm going to use the word mission here instead of vision, then you can, if you choose to, you know, really decide, this is what I'm taking a stand for, you know, this is a movement, right? This is more than a business, it's a movement. And you might want to look at writing articles for health journals, and you might want to look at getting interviewed on summits about health. And your angle is always, we need to take back into our hands the ability to heal ourselves, because we have it, we've just given it away.
Yeah.
So then everything, your messaging, everything you're sharing becomes about that. And you're and you might want to go into history a little bit. You might want to talk about, how it happened that we forgot that we all naturally have the power to heal. You might want to go and research and find stories of miraculous self-healing and share them as part of your messaging tapestry. When you're really, really clear on like what your thing is that you're up to, then you can look at it from all the different angles. And be sharing around that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yes, it does. I kind of cut it. My connection dipped out just then, but yeah, I got that. Thank you. I'll listen back and hear it all. That's great. Yeah, that's lots to think about. Thank you.
Good. Okay. Did we have a next? We didn't, did we? Who wants to go next? Ushmi, great.
So I'm going to share, it's the whole story, but I recognize there's more need for some stories in there, but I'll share what I have. Floating snowflakes melt into the warm window as I watch them carrying my disengaged self to the dream of a life still seemingly so far away. A dream that I catch in stolen moments like these, a solitary pause in the monotonous day of the corporate world bunny I seem to have become. I'm going to share my words with the world one day, I secretly tell a colleague in a Skype chat, hoping that my manager, who sits opposite me, doesn't sense the feeling of deceit I hold in not keeping all my Skype communication work-related. My colleague writes back immediately. It seems she's as disconnected from her work as I am, and the world will be lucky to read what you have to say, she writes. I smile, I thank her, and we both go back to our tasks at hand. Little did I know that this disengaged moment would sow the seed for a call I would heed 6 years later, having left the wheel of corporate and well into my journey as an online transformational coach. Now, the message I wanted to share with the world had become clearer. And although I could facilitate the sharing in part with my clients, I silently knew there was a bigger stage beckoning, and this stage, it seems, wanted to make itself known as a book. But who are you to put together a book? I challenged myself, finding no sufficient rebuttal to the part of me that didn't want this. She was right. Weren't books the things of those who had mastery, money, and time? Because if they were, I mostly felt like I didn't have those. My mastery was relative, my money was mediocre, and my time always felt inadequate. Yet the call to create was strong, and most days it felt like I had no choice but to commit to it. So I did. It's been 2 years now since I hit publish and let my work out into the world. 2 years of having overcome the stories that, if they had succeeded, would have kept the ideas in my head as simply that, ideas, good ones albeit, that now roam freely, touching the hearts and minds of many, and keep me secure in knowing that part of my purpose is being fulfilled and my legacy created. Because I dream of a world where unbridled self-expression is the status quo, where the way showers of our times feel so fully connected to themselves and their message, that the myriad of fears that could stop them from sharing it bounce off the back of their deep knowing that the words they have to share are the necessary change our world needs now.
It's amazing.
Oh, I'm so nervous.
Ooh, wow. How else do you feel? Nervous?
Excited. It feels really good having that out like that. Yeah. My question though is about, I feel that I could add some more story in there.
Yeah, I love that moment. So I've just got to move my leg. Okay. There's a table leg in the way. I love the moment of you and the colleague. Love it, love it, love it. There's possibly something there for you to play with around, you could bring it in later because you talk about this disengaged moment, and then possibly later you could bring in something about actually the importance of disengaging from what doesn't matter, so we can engage with what does, which is what you were doing. In that moment, you're engaging with your truth and your fire and your purpose. If you want to go with the origin story, you could go to why you struggled to share your words with the world in the first place. Like, what's the story there? Why is that?
I think that, it's that sense of feeling like I was so different that, and that what my words and message would be so different. That sense of I don't fit in, so who's gonna want to hear this anyway? And then recognizing, you don't fit in because this is how you think is necessary to create the new world. So
Exactly. Yes, I love that. Oh, I wonder if for your big vision, you could have, because I loved how you said it, that you dream of a world where unbridled self-expression is the new status quo. And if you just switch it around, it could go, it's time for a new status quo, unbridled self-expression. And then it could be something like ... this way, so that you're also setting work with you up as the path to unbridled self-expression in this new status quo. I think that could work on a banner. But see if you can put that feeling of I'm different, I don't fit in, my words won't be understood, people will misunderstand me, into a story.
Thank you.
Great, really great work. And then we want to land the plane a little stronger, because I didn't hear you say that you help people put their message in a book, right?
I didn't.
Yeah.
Where would it go though? Would it go after the vision then, in this story?
Yeah, either could work. And it might change when you've got your childhood story in there or your teenage story. But experiment with putting it at the end. At the end. And it could be something like, it could be more of a direct call to action, something like, so if you too dream of sharing your words with the world, and you too want your stage to be a book, I'm Ushmi, I help you put your message in a book, and it starts by booking a call with me here.
Thank you.
Exciting, well done. Really, really great work. Who's next? Rianne.
I hope I can remember this because I've got lots of different go here, go there. Lots of arrows in here. If I pause, that's why. I apologise.
No worries. Just pause until you find it.
My daughter was handed to me at the nondescript door of a room on the 21st floor of a hotel in Jinan province, China, and she was screaming. Not just screaming, but the hot, turning blue, sweaty, trying to escape shriek of genuine fear. She still hates lifts, but at the time it felt personal. She was handed to me along with supermarket carrier bags full of sweets and a form giving us 24 hours to decide if we wanted to keep her. The situation was so surreal, my husband and I just stared at each other, a hot ball of pain between us, calling out in the only way she knew how. We just didn't have a clue how to handle the situation. I tried everything that night, everything to calm her. I read stories, I bribed her with sweet, sticky toddler snacks. We bathed her. That did not go well. I tried to give her a bottle, but she couldn't stop enough to swallow, and rivers of milk poured down her face, mixed with tears and snot. I cried too, wet, sobbing, painful tears straight from my heart. How could I not? She was in so much pain, and nothing I did helped. I'd read all the books, completed all the courses, and we'd been warned to go slowly with physical contact, that she wouldn't be used to it. But every bone of my body called out to comfort her, to show her my love. So that night I made a choice to throw out all the well-meaning advice, the idealistic books, even the horror stories. I threw it all away. They didn't know my child, and she was already my child. They didn't know what she needed. How could they? They'd never met her. I was only starting to learn her myself. I chose to step out of my head-based logic, of everything I'd learnt, and listen to my body, my mother's heart, my instinct. And I climbed into the vast double bed with her, opened my arms and nestled her against my chest, and we rocked together. And suddenly all the stress flooded from her body, and we both gently wept. We wept for everything she'd had to go through to get to this place. We wept for the tragedy around her birth, and we wept that we had found each other, and we had found a way to be together, to love each other, to comfort each other. That is the power of instinct. I'm not going to pretend that the last 7 years have been easy going from that moment, but I do know that every time I've chosen logic over instinct is when it's all gone wrong. When we hear our inner voice, our instinct, we hear what we needed as a child, and within that we can hear what our own children need. So many of us are blocked from hearing that by our own childhood experiences. I dream of a world where every child grows up in an environment where their parents are able to access their loving instincts and allow their children to feel their love and bask in it. Where parents who are struggling with the stress of their families or with their own stuff that they're carrying from childhood can reach out and find themselves held, empathized with, understood, and not judged or punished. I dream of a world where we don't pass on our own insecurities and pain to our children because we can trust ourselves. We can hear our own child voice and what we needed, and we can make a choice to treat our own children differently. That's a world I want to be part of. And that's why I work with parents to help them to access and trust their instincts to create loving, peaceful family environments.
Oh, I have tingles all over, Rianne. So, I'm not even sure I can speak. It's so moving.
Wasn't sure I was going to get through that, actually.
Yeah, look around at all the moved faces. Really, really powerful, and such a great example of taking your audience on a journey. And through the emotions of the child and yourself, you know, the initial fear and stress and screaming, and then the love and the soothing and the peace. Exquisite. Well done. Really, really well done. Such a great starter sentence. We are hooked immediately. And really relatable, you know, the description of how it felt personal. I loved some of the visual language, the milk, the tears, the snot pouring down the face, like really visceral as well, visual and visceral. And then that really strong line, every time I've chosen logic over instinct is when it's all gone wrong. That's a really strong point of view to be sharing. So you need to know that and be willing to be a stand for that and be, talking about that often. in your marketing, in other stories that you'll find and share in the future. You might want to, I don't think you need to, I think it's absolutely perfect as is, but if you want, you know, more stories in your back pocket, you might want to find a couple of those moments where you did choose logic over instinct. Why? Right? What was the interference? What was the misunderstanding, or what was the unconscious voice saying? And how did you get to trust your instincts? And then at the end, when you say, that's a world I want to be a part of, I would love you to claim that a little bit more, because Rianne, you're not just a part of that world, you're a part creating it. So you can say that, but then add, so that's the world I want to be a part of, and that's the world I am playing my part in creating. Right? That's the game I'm up to. Like, that is, you know, whatever word or mission, if that feels more true. Yeah? A world where parents trust their instincts. They're loving, able to access their loving instincts. Yeah. Really, really powerful. Do you niche into working with adoptive parents, or do you work with any parents?
I haven't yet, but yeah, I could do. I have adoptive and biological children, so I kind of fit between two worlds.
Yeah. Are you interested? Is that a heart calling at all?
Yeah, I would love to. I would absolutely love to. I think because we are trained to the nth degree as adoptive parents, and a lot of what we're trained in is not entirely exactly right. You know, so
yeah.
No, it's getting there. It's getting there.
So my mum is a therapist, and she works with adoptive and fostering families.
Okay.
And she does a lot of work in the NHS, and obviously, unsurprisingly, there's just been huge amounts of cuts. So there are lots of adoptive parents who, up until literally last week, were receiving therapy and aren't now. So get it out there.
Okay. I'll get it out there.
Get it out there. It's so needed. Yeah. Thank you. I'm going to try and not cry for the next person. So needed. Yeah. Okay. If you can speak, you are welcome to go next. Okay, so I'm going to do a little more training, and we'll see if we have time at the end to hear any more. So this is a really vital reminder that you're not just writing words, right? You are sending potentially healing missives out into our world in the way Rianne just did. Like, I know you're all going to remember the feeling of how it felt to hear Rianne. And it reminds me of that beautiful, much quoted quote from Maya Angelou, who said, you know, no one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And we all got from Rianne's share just how much she cares. So then we're listening, right? Then we care about what she knows and how she can help us to trust our instincts. And so remember that when you are putting your voice out into the world, the energy you create from creates. Right? The energy you create from creates. You are a powerful creator. And if you write your stories with worry and stress and trying to get it right, that's what the energy will be that goes out into the world. And if you write it with self-love and trust and open-heartedness, then there might be a clumsy segue here or there, but the energy that's going to go forth into our world will be one of self-trust and self-love and unapologetic self-expression. So I'm going to share with you a couple of journaling prompts that I would like you to do. The first one is, how could I bring myself into even greater integrity with my message? Right? So if Rianne's story is all about trusting your instincts, is there anywhere in your life where you're still not trusting your instincts? Again, the quotes are coming in today. This is making me think of that Rumi quote, right? Your job is not to seek love, but to seek all the places in you where you, or what is it? Where you put up barriers to love, right? If this is who you are, someone who understands that love is the greatest instinct, where are you not allowing that to be the truth in your life? So how could I bring myself into even greater integrity with my message? We will put these in the replay email. How could I embody my message even more? Right? If your message is one of self-expression, but you know that you lock your hips and you lock your knees and you only breathe up from very high up in your lungs and you speak in a very clipped way, how could you embody your message even more? How could you speak from your thighs, right? How could you bring your message now more deeply into you, into your body? How might I live my message even more boldly, right? There might be some really practical answers to this. With Beth, we talked about being willing to be a voice for that radical revolutionary vision of a world where we say no to medical intervention. And where do you want to talk about that? Do you want to talk about that in birth? Do you want to talk about that in journeys with particular diseases, right? What are you willing to be a bold voice for? And how would it be to fully trust your message? So if you truly, truly, truly knew this is it, right? This is my work in the world. This is what I'm here to deliver. Nothing else now is important. I put on my blinkers. People could be shouting about whatever they're shouting about, and I don't care because my flag is in the sand. I know where I'm going. I trust my message. Okay, so whatever comes up for you when you're journaling on this question, how would it be to fully trust my message? So there are some journaling prompts to start to go a level or two deeper into your message for the world. And I would also encourage you at this point to create for yourself a ritual to bring yourself into the energy you want to be putting out in the world. Okay, so this is back to the importance of energetic alignment, right? We've got this beautiful visual here of, you know, as above, so below, as within, so without, right? Those core spiritual teachings know that you transmit out into the world the energy that you are living, right? The energy that you're creating from. Let's make sure that's the energy you want to be putting out into the world. And one of the best ways to make sure it is to design for yourself, I would recommend a very short ritual, right? Otherwise you'll use it as a reason not to write. I don't have time for my 72-minute ritual, I cannot write today. Okay, if you've seen Shakespeare in Love, right? Who plays Shakespeare? It's not Joseph Fiennes, and he just sort of takes his quill, spins around. I think maybe he spits and then he starts writing. That's it. Or maybe he does this with his hands. I can't remember exactly, but it takes under a second, right? So we want an energetic ritual for you to bring you into alignment with your essence, so that is what is then going out into the world. And it might be as simple as sitting at your desk, you know, placing your hands over your heart. In Mesmerize, every Monday morning I hold a half-hour sacred listening, and the very final thing I say is, when we've all got our hands on our heart, I say, bringing your hands, your heart and your head all in alignment, right? Your hands, your agents of action, in alignment with your head and your heart. And for me, that is what I do. You know, before I start writing, I place my hands over my heart. I feel the alignment between my hands as my agents of action in the world, you know, my heart as my director, you know, and my mind, right, as my intelligence, my ability to communicate. And I feel them all aligned, and then I start writing. So it can be as simple as that. You might want to think about the senses when you're thinking about your ritual. So you might want to light a candle, right? You might want to light a particular smell of a candle, or choose a particular color of a candle. You might want to write the essentialized version of your vision out and have it as something that you read. You tap into the energy of it, and then you write. Okay, so there are a couple of examples of rituals, simple things you can do to bring yourself into the present moment, into alignment with your true self, your true essence. So you're writing from there, because the energy that you create from creates. And this is a reminder at this point in the course that you are doing, right? What you are up to here is deeply powerful, world-shaping stuff. Because our cultures, the ones we grew up in, are the culture of our family, you know, the wider societal culture, they created, as many of us are now sharing in the stories that we're sharing, they created our inner stories, right? Those cultures created our inner stories of what is acceptable, what is appropriate, what gets you attention, what gets you ignored, what gets you what seems like love, what gets you what seems like dismissiveness, or, you know, whatever. We absorbed and then continued to propagate those stories because of what we experienced, what we absorbed in those growing up key moments inside of cultures. And cultures, of course, as we know, have different stories, right? This is one of the reasons why travel is so important, because you get to go and experience, oh my goodness, there is no such thing as normal, right? This culture thinks it's completely normal and appropriate to eat dog. This culture doesn't. Who knows who's right? Nobody. It's simply different. And so having these experiences of traveling and being in different cultures where, you know, the ways of being are completely different is a sort of loosener of the knot of those stories of what's normal, what's appropriate, what's acceptable, what's lovable. And story also creates culture. So we could choose to continue with our children, with people that we teach, with friends. We could choose to continue to propagate those old paradigm stories of how you should be, or we can, tell better stories and create a better world. So know that what you are doing here, absolutely, yes, is about writing those visual, visceral, emotive stories that are going to call your ideal clients to you, right? The ones that want to be taught how to get in touch with their instincts, the ones that want and need to be reminded that they hold the power to heal in their own hands and inside their own bodies. And we are changing the stories. We're telling better stories, and in so doing, creating a better world, because stories are what culture is made of. So let's be really aware of what stories we're believing, what stories we are continuing to propagate, right? Like the story of, you know, having an imposter, right? It's just a story. And to even believe that you could be an imposter means that you're believing the story that getting a seat at the table means you have to look a certain way and behave a certain way, and you contrast that image, which is a story of what you're supposed to look and be and act like and maybe have as a certificate, against you, and then feeling like an imposter. But that's a shitty story, right? It's an old story, and we get to choose to no longer believe in it. This is why you will never hear me doing a class on the imposter, because it's all a story. And I really, like, one of my biggest wishes is we just rip that story down, right? As soon as we stop believing that in order to be in a position of power, we have to look a certain way, be a certain way, have a certain background, the idea of an imposter becomes impossible. It's no longer there. So the stories we continue to allow ourselves to believe in can either harm us or heal us. So this is my plea, my cheerleading, my putting my flag in the sand around the power of stories to create a better world, and to remind you at this just past midway point of the course, you know, what we're really up to here. And that's a big journey. It's a really big journey, right? To rip down those stories, to continue to be brave enough to go out there and say, you know what, actually, I don't think you have to do this, and this in power. Oh, and you know what's also true is I'm really, really good at self-care, and no part of me thinks it's selfish, and no, I'm not ashamed about it. And I happily nap every afternoon, right? And not feel like you have to continue going, oh yeah, self-care is really hard, isn't it? Yeah, it's really hard for women. Like, we can tell better stories, truer stories, and it takes support, and it takes being in it together. And tomorrow, I'm going to take a moment, and I'm going to tell you about my year-long program where we do that together. That's Mesmerize, and it's going to be right for some of you. But whether it's Mesmerize or something else, you are going to want a next step after this program. And so I want you all to book in for a signpost my next steps call with me. Okay, so you can go to that link and book in a call with me. We'll have a 20-minute conversation and we'll help you get clear on what your next step is. It might be mesmerize, it might be something different. It might be that actually what you need is a full day with me, right? A full VIP day, and we're gonna put your story together and rip it apart, and put it together and rip it apart, and get you in your body on the stage, playing with your voice, the tone of your voice, making sure your body language matches the message, etc. It might be that actually what you realize at this point is you need more of the deeper healing work. With me, that would be the voice dialogue. That's a big part of my one-to-one work, of getting to the core, to the inner child, to what they need to feel safe enough for you to be doing this big, bold, brave, world-shaping work in our world at this time. And it might be something completely different, and I have a whole little black book of variously skilled people. So make sure you take me up on this opportunity and book your next steps call with me. And then the steps forward for today, so book that call, journal on the energetic alignment prompts and design your writing ritual. Practice the essential extraneous editing method and keep putting your pieces together. Play, experiment with them. I really recommend either printing them out or writing them out on separate pieces of card, so you can move them around physically, right? And read them through and feel, oh, does it feel better when I start with my vision, when I end with my vision? Does it feel better to go beginning, middle, end, or end, beginning, middle? Speak them out loud in different orders and find the way that feels right for you. And make sure that you're also holding your Just Right client in mind while you are doing that. And then here are a couple of things to bear in mind when you think that you've got it all together. Okay, so the first three are just the structures. So have I included my vision? Have I included 1 to 3 story moments that communicate why I care so much and how well I get it? Right, that empathy piece, that trust building piece. Am I holding my Just Right client in mind? And is it clear what's in it for them? Okay, so they're the 3 pieces. And then a little check for your content, right? So have I used appropriate levels for your ideal client? Have I used language of the senses and the emotions? Or am I being vague? Am I being teachy preachy? Am I using coach speak? Am I being specific enough? Yeah, am I letting my audience in? Is it clear what's actually happening? Or again, am I being a bit vague, a bit amorphous, too metaphorical? And is it as concise as possible? Or have I over-explained and over-contextualized? Shorter isn't always better, but it's very handy to have a as short as possible version to use. Because if you want to be using this, say for example, when you go networking, right, and someone asks you what you do, and you want to be able to respond in this amazingly fascinating way, right, where you paint a picture of your vision, or maybe you blow everyone's minds with your fierce revolutionary mission that you're on, yeah, and you share a little bit about how you came to be the person that cares so much about this, and you then share with them what you actually do. If that takes at that point, you know, at a networking event, if that takes any more really than 3 minutes, you have spoken for too long. And what I would want you to do in that scenario is press pause, get in the teleporter, go back in time, listen properly in this moment, find your most concise version of your story, practice it again, and then you can go back to that networking event and have people not glazing over, and phasing out on you. Because that is what happens. I have seen it happen again and again and again. Someone will just speak for too long in that initial introductory moment. And because I teach what I teach, I then take that as an opportunity to sort of glance around the circle and just check, like, when do people stop listening, right? And it's about 3 minutes, like more than 3 minutes, and you're on a monologue. And people didn't ask for a monologue. They don't want a monologue, they want a conversation, in a networking event. The great thing is, if your introduction is interesting enough, people will ask you to tell them more. That's the natural impact of having an interesting introduction, is people will go, oh my goodness, like, tell me more. You know, what happened next, right? So see if you can be as concise as possible so that you have that skill available to you for when you need it. Okay, so there are some reminders, a little StoryMagic checklist. We will put this in the replay email as well, along with your steps forward and the link to book in your signpost my next steps call. So we have got just over 10 minutes. Yes, Jackie, I'm realizing how powerful and healing our stories can be. Thank you, everyone, for sharing your stories. Right? Really, really powerful when done, and when done well, and potentially incredibly healing. Okay. So does anyone have any questions at this point, just specifically about the steps forward? Any questions? Ellen?
I'm wondering a little about how to integrate the model and the story, or the steps you were talking about now, the different parts the model of what you make them, what comes from inside, and what is the brand, etc. And then this, what you've just written now, the vision and the stories. And
so there's nothing new. It's all a continuation of what you've been playing with. So the vision is your why. Yeah?
Yes.
The stories are your why you moments. Yeah? And then what you do, so whether that's come from your message magic model or you just already know it, that's the bit that I was calling why them, but that didn't work, so we scrapped that. And so it's, you know, what's in it for them, right? Land the plane. What do you do? Why should they care? Yeah, so there's not anything that is new or different. It's the same that we've been doing all along. Is that clear?
Yes, I think so. It's just that I would love to integrate it. It's like that is much more clear to me, but finding this three minute long presentation and coming from that model, it's like that model is clear, and I haven't gotten those stories clear yet. And so coming to that presentation, I find is a challenge.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the process of, or that's the step of making sure you either write them out on separate pieces of card or print them out so you can play around with the order. Yeah? Because you do now have the pieces. You have your vision, you have what you do, and then you might have some story moments and you're not sure, am I going to use this one or am I going to use this one? Like, that's okay at this point. You're still playing, but you need to actually do it. right? You can't now think your way to putting the presentation together. You need them out tangible and movable, aroundable. Yeah?
Yes,
So
I think that would help.
Okay.
It's really
It's an action.
Yes.
Yeah, it's an action you need to take right now to get to the next level of clarity.
Yes.
Okay. Is that definitely clear enough? Do you have any other lingering questions or concerns?
No, I think that is the missing link, that I actually print them out and move them around physically. I think that will help me really a lot.
Good.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Carol.
Just following on from what Ellen was saying, when I was thinking then when she was talking about the message magic model, because we had vision in the middle and we had what we do in the outer one, and then in the middle ring it was how people around you feel.
Yes.
Is that showing up in this story that we're creating? Is it just what I call seeded throughout?
It's not, that is not now, like you're not gonna, as part of your story, say, I help you feel safe and sparked. Yeah, it got you to your message in part, and you can, if you choose, go back to it and do a check, right? Like, has the story that I've created, does it match the way I know that me and my truest self do kind of conjure as an experience? Yeah, so it can be something you check it off against. And also it's something that you now have, right? So if you go and you work with a visual branding designer, a graphic designer, you can say, look, these are my brand essence words. When people come across my website or anything I put out on social media, I want them to feel bur, and bur. You're already streaks ahead of other people going to do that visual branding work.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? No? Well, we have 6 minutes, so does anyone else want to share where they're at so far with their story? Excellent. Becky.
So this reworked version of Saturday. Okay, so if you've built a life around helping people, I'll bet that you want to make positive change for your patients or clients, for your colleagues, for your family, for your community and the planet. If you're someone who feels it all, you might feel impatient for that change. Of course, you want to see a world without inequality, without climate change and biodiversity loss, without racism, sexism and bullying. It's hard living in the world today as someone who feels it all. You want things to be better and you want it now. No wonder you feel overwhelmed. No wonder you don't feel you're making the change you dream of making. No one can make those changes alone. The truth is you cannot wait for the whole world to be healed for you to give yourself a break. This is the route to overwhelm, exhaustion, and feeling stuck. I've been in that place, and that's how I ended up sitting in my car in the hospital car park, broken after another shift with no breaks, no help, and no rest, feeling like a miserable caged animal, neglected with no way out. 8 years after starting work as a doctor to help people, I'd started to lose my compassion. I didn't recognize myself anymore. For me, burnout didn't arrive in an explosion. It came in a quiet fizzling and dampening of my fire. The morning moments of racing palpitations and nausea as my footsteps echoed in hospital corridors on the way to work. And the moments of exhausted tears at the smallest inconvenience and the viruses that wiped me out for days. I found myself Googling alternative careers for doctors. I could never get excited about working to pad someone else's wallet. I faced a choice. I had to do something, otherwise nothing would change. I found a coach who gently helped me to rediscover my joy, my optimism, my creativity, all the things that helped stoke my fire so I could focus on making change and still enjoy life. I rediscovered the joy in my work, found the balance I was seeking. I learned when to say yes and when to say no. I learned how to rest and let go rather than push through. I learned where to focus my energy. I was choosing to stay rather than trapped, and I felt like I was finally free to choose. This is what I want for you. The world needs people like you, people who feel it all to shine brightly. I dream of a world where those who want to see positive change are lifted up rather than ground down, where the injustices of the world are healed because those who cannot stand to live with them are supported to act on them, inspiring others to follow in their footsteps. That's why I support people like you to move from overwhelming exhaustion to energized and unstoppable. We need to get focused on you and how you can make your biggest change in a way that feels joyful and lights you up. Being fully present for the wonderful moments in life so that you can maintain your energy for change and enjoy the view on the way. That is key to steadily changing the world for the better. I believe it's possible for you to protect your candle from blowing out and also light the way to a better world.
All right, well done. Well done. All the pieces are there, right? So you've got the structure. And because we only have 3 minutes, I'm just going to be very direct. Is that okay?
Yeah, fine.
Sure. So it's a little flat.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about wanting to take your audience on an emotional journey, right?
Mm-hmm.
At the moment, emotionally, it's flat. There's no mountain peaks, no valleys. And one of the ways I think you could bring in some is when you are describing all the different ways you want the world to be different, right? You want there to be no racism, no sexism, no misogyny, no climate change, no blah, 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 blah. I think my instinct tells me is you need to make that funny.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise it's too much. I mean, that's the point, right? The point is it's too much to feel it all. And your clients are people who feel it all. So if you just name them in the way you named them, they're going to go, ugh, it's too much. And then that's just all they're thinking and feeling as they're listening to the rest of it, right? We need to find your version of funny. It's like, who are your favorite comedians?
I just like loads of them. Loads of them.
Okay, so you like humor.
Yeah.
Yeah? You like humor. Okay.
Actually funny.
So I want you to have a think about who some of your favorite comedians are. Like maybe go and put their names into YouTube and watch a couple of the people who really make you laugh, and figure out what it is. Like, is it slapstick? Is it like really dark humor? Is it really dry and sarcastic and the Americans aren't going to get it? Is it pokey? What is it, right? What's your, love you Americans, what's your version of funny, right? How do you...
And I'm always told that no one can actually tell that I'm joking. That's what I'm afraid of.
Okay. So we might need to coax out of you. It might feel uncomfortable. You might need to go a little bit over the top first, and then we can bring it down. But I would actually encourage you to get in front of a mirror and do that bit and do it as a skit, right? And really go over the top and be like, and the ice caps are melting, right? Like really go over the top. And then you can find somewhere in the middle that feels comfortable, but is overtly funny enough so that people do understand that you're doing it on purpose. Yeah. It's a general rule of thumb that the kind of darker a subject matter is, the funnier we have to be around it. Otherwise, it's just too much. People can't listen. Right. So if your subject matter is very, very difficult, go funny. Go funny. So yeah, that would be my main feedback. The other thing is it's just me being pernickety, but burnout is never an explosion, right? Because it's adrenal fatigue, so it is a dampening of the fire. Yeah. So it kind of like a little bit of doubt comes into my mind when I hear you saying, it wasn't an explosion for me, because I go, well, it's not for anyone. And what we need to make sure we're doing with you is the opposite of that, because you are a doctor right? You actually understand what burnout is. And lots of people talk about burnout and they don't actually know what they mean. So we can bring in the fact that you are a doctor who experienced burnout as part of your credibility. Yeah, as part of why someone should choose to do this work with you over someone who isn't a doctor. So maybe actually when you're talking about the burnout, you can go a little bit more into the process of that and the signals of the body, right? Because I remember when we played the story game, you were fantastic at describing the signals of the body that we ignore. And I think this would be a really great moment to actually bring some of that in. Okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. So great. So it's all there. It's just we need a bit more of an emotional journey. See if you can bring in the humor, and then bring us into how it really, really felt to be a doctor who was burning out. And maybe there was shame there. Maybe there was, this shouldn't be happening to me. Whatever was actually happening. Like take us there.
I had a story about the morning I was in the car park, the getting the call that someone had called in sick, the dragging myself into work, the not getting lunch, blah, blah, blah. And then I cut it out because I thought, oh, it's too much stuff.
No, I think we might need it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll play with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good. All right. Well done, everyone. And I will see you at what is 9 o'clock UK time tomorrow. If you're not in the UK, translate that to your time zone. And I will see you there. All right. Bye for now.